What's up guys, it's Tony from Streetball Strategies, where we use strategy to build your streetball legacy. Today we're talking about an introduction to ball handling for big guys. Today's an exciting day for me, number one because the weather is finally nice, and number two because, as you guys know, I don't usually focus on basketball skills or skill sets because I figure that there are plenty of channels on YouTube with great content about how to do this basketball move, how to do this basketball move set, very specific basketball skills when it comes to applying them on the court. There's plenty of channels that do a really good job at teaching you how to do those things. Whereas this channel is more about the mental side of basketball and how to think about the game and approach it mentally. I like to think of it like those channels teach you how to play and I teach you how to win, at least from a mental standpoint. But I'm excited because today we're going to get a little bit more specific about a basketball skill than we ever have before. I was recently asked by a young player who plays center who wants to improve his ball handling, so here's my advice. First of all, let's start with what we use dribbling for in the first place. The one and only reason we dribble is so that we can move with the ball in our possession. And I realize it's very easy to watch the NBA and see a bunch of these tall NBA players, superstars, who have all these fancy, intricate dribbling moves, and you watch that and you say to yourself, I want to be able to do that too. I'm a tall guy, I'm a big guy, I should be able to do that as well. But you have to keep in mind that for those NBA superstars that are super tall and have super deep a bag of tools when it comes to dribbling, that they have to have those tools in their toolbox, right? The defenders that they're playing against are savage, top of the line defenders, and the defensive schemes and strategies that are being implemented against those tall superstars are so intricate and so tough that they have to be able to have all of those dribbling moves in order to be able to deal with those kinds of defenses. But as younger players, regardless of your height, regardless of the position you play, you need to understand that to a degree, moving with the ball, movement with the ball, can be detrimental. Now I know that sounds crazy, but think about it like this, okay? At some point, the movement has to stop. At some point, the dribbling has to stop. At some point, the ball handling has to stop. Why? Because at some point, you need to shoot. At some point, you need to take your shot. And when you do take that shot, you need to get centered, be stabilized, be on balance, so that when you go up for whatever kind of shot that you're shooting, you have as much control as you possibly can. But if you're moving while you're shooting that shot, your degree of control declines dramatically. So whenever you take a shot, you're trying to be as still, as unbalanced and stabilized as possible so that you have as much control as possible over whatever kind of shot that you're taking. A lot of ball players see those NBA players making all those fancy dribble moves, and then when they get on the court, it's just sort of second nature to them to start dribbling as soon as they touch the ball, when you should not be dribbling if you don't have to. You shouldn't be moving with the ball if you don't have to. The more still you can be, the more control you can put into whatever shot you're going to take. For example, if I'm on the perimeter, I'm a smaller guy, if someone passes me the ball and I'm wide open, why would I dribble? I don't have to dribble. Me taking a wide open jumper is a high percentage shot relative to me having the ball in my possession, me dribbling with a defender right in front of me, trying to shake that defender and then pulling up for maybe a little bit of a contested jumper. That jumper off the dribble is a much lower percentage shot than compared to a open jumper. So So if I get the ball past me and I'm open, there's no reason for me to dribble when I can take an open jumper. It's the same thing for big guys in the post. If you're in the post, you have good post position, the ball gets passed to you and you're in a position where you can get a relatively high percentage shot up without dribbling. Why would you introduce that unnecessary movement into your move if you don't have to? Why start dribbling if you don't have to? If you have great post position, why start dribbling if you don't have to? That's one of the advantages that big guys have to us smaller guys, which is that you don't have to worry about dribbling the way that we do. We dribble around the perimeter because we're trying to create space, whether it's space from our defender or whether it's because we're trying to develop passing lanes to get the ball inside to you. It becomes much more necessary for us to have to dribble in order to create that space, whereas when you are working down in the post, you don't have to worry about creating that space. You don't have to worry about creating those passing lanes. Your primary concern is to get in the best scoring position that you can, which is as close to the basket as you can. And thus, you don't have to dribble because you don't have to move because you don't have to create that space. Think about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, okay? The best, most efficient, highest scorer in NBA history. What made him such a great scorer, people always think of the skyhook, and of course the skyhook is part of that, but what made him so great was that he always got the best scoring position he could. And then when he got the best position he could, when he received the ball, all he had to do was rise up for that skyhook. There wasn't any unnecessary dribbling if he didn't have to, and he would receive the ball and he would go straight up for the skyhook. Now, maybe sometimes he would throw in a shoulder fake to get his defender off balance, or maybe he would dip his shoulder into his defender to create a little bit of space so that he could then go up for the skyhook. But the whole idea was get in the best scoring position he could, and then when he got there and received the ball, it was as little movement as possible. It was get as little movement between him receiving the ball and then going up for the skyhook, as little movement as possible, because that would then decrease the chance for him to make a mistake in his process to score the ball. So he didn't dribble unless it was absolutely necessary, and he didn't throw any extra movement into whatever move he was making to get his skyhook up. He didn't put any extra movement into that unless he absolutely felt it was necessary. Otherwise, it was just catch the ball straight into the skyhook, because that was the most simplest, efficient way to score, and he used that to become the best scorer in NBA history. As ball players, we should try to become as well-rounded as we possibly can, but I believe, being an old school kind of guy that I am, that there's a certain order of learning fundamentals that allows you to become well-rounded. For us smaller guys, we play away from the basket around the perimeter, and as our game matures, as we learn, as we master that perimeter game, we then work our way towards the basket, and then we worry about post-up game. For big guys, you start around the basket, you master working in the post, working around the basket, and as your game matures, you then free up the time to worry about perimeter games and ball handling and more skill sets that have to do with working away from the basket. And the reason for that is not arbitrary. There's very solid logic as to why small guys start away from the basket and work their way towards the basket in terms of building skills, and that big guys start at the basket and then work their way away from the basket as their skills increase. It basically has to do with where your team needs you and what your team needs you to do. As a smaller guy, if I was very skilled in the post, but I didn't have much of a perimeter game, my team doesn't need me in the post. I'm a small guy. I don't have a lot of business working in the post, offensively, defensively, rebounding, whatever. My team doesn't need me down there. But they need me around the perimeter to be passing the ball, creating space. And so I focus on that from the very beginning because that's where I spend most of my time, because that's where my team needs me. Vice versa for big guys. If you're a big guy and you have great ball handling, but you don't really know what to do in the post, that's not where your team needs you. If you're a big guy, especially out here at the park, tall guys are usually rare. And if you're a tall guy who has great ball handling, but doesn't have a lot of post skills, that's not where your team needs you. As a small guy, I need you down in the post, knowing what you're doing and being an effective post player. I don't need you on the perimeter because I got that. I know how to do that. I need you down in the post because that's what your height allows you to do. It allows you to be effective around the basket. Now, if you find yourself here at the elbow and you're not comfortable here, right? If you, for whatever reason, you find yourself here at the elbow, you have the ball in your possession and you're not comfortable here, let that be a sign to you that maybe you're not ready to face up your defender and try to take him off the dribble when you're way out here. Don't feel like just because you have the ball and you caught it right here that you have to make a move. You don't have to dribble just because you can. You don't have to take this shot. You don't have to face up your defender just because you can. If you're not comfortable doing that, it's probably because you don't know what to do and you don't know what you want to do when you are in this space on the floor. If you find yourself in that position, you don't have to dribble. You don't have to shoot. You can pass the ball off, get back down into the post and try to get into better scoring position. Being able to make moves from this kind of position on the floor will come and you will learn how to do them, but the reason I say that there's a hierarchy of how to develop your skills, whether it's a small guy working outside in or a big guy working inside out, is because you learn and master your skills down here, and as you do that, you will then free up time in order for you to learn how to work your way out and away from the basket. And then what's going to happen is that as you start to do that, you will recognize that the skills that you use down here in the post to create space from your defender who's on your back in the post, you will realize and understand that once you're out here on the three-point line and you're facing up the defense, you're doing essentially the same kind of body moves that you would be using in the post. You're just using them now facing the basket, and now you're 25 feet away instead of 5 feet away. But you're not going to understand that until you work your way down in the post and master that skill set and then let it translate to playing around the perimeter. One of the advantages, one of the great things about being a big guy and working in the post is that you don't have to worry about crossing somebody up or step backs or spin moves in order to create space. You're already down here, right? Theoretically, ideally, you would get as close to the basket as possible so that when I'm on the perimeter and I pass the ball into you, all you have to do is make your move to the basket. And because you're a tall guy, because when you put your hands in the air, your fingertips are so much closer to the rim than mine would be, your shooting percentage of making that shot goes way up compared to me being shorter than you, that once you establish your position down here, I pass you the ball, you make a move, and then your shooting percentage is much higher than mine would be if I tried to force a jumper from the three-point line. So you don't have as much concern for ball handling as I would have, and you should appreciate that when it comes to the fact that you work in the post and I work in the perimeter. As you master your moves down here, being able to use your footwork to use your body to then create space to make a move, that skill will translate to playing on the perimeter as you move your way out after you've mastered all of this. And to put it simply, ball handling is all about muscle control and muscle memory. Very fundamental, very rudimentary things that, because of that, of course, you'll be able to learn, but because you don't need to use that down here, because you don't have to worry about crossing people up or stepping back or spin moves or any of that stuff, because you don't have to worry about using those moves to create space. You don't have to worry about learning those skills right away. You can use the mastery of the moves down here in the post to translate into learning how to make those kinds of moves later on. But for right now, as a young player, just focus on mastering this and then allowing the mastery of these skills down here to then translate to skills used for crossing people up and creating space with ball handling. As a young post player, concentrate and focus more on your footwork and your body control down here. Being able to move your feet in an effective way so that you can get the kind of post position that you want. And then when you're here, you can then control your body to be able to make as little movement as possible. Again, movement equals the opportunity for you to make a mistake or for a smaller defender to come back door and swipe at the ball, try to get a steal as you're dribbling. When you're down here, and for any position on the court really, the less movement you have to make, the better. So don't dribble if you don't have to. Don't throw any extra moves at your defender if you don't have to. Do the very minimum that you have to do so that when you finally go into the movement of your shot, there's as little movement as possible to have to recover from to get back on balance, stabilize yourself, and gain control to put that shot up. I realize that that might not be as satisfying as me saying, okay, here's this dribble move, here's how you do it, here's how you use it, so that you could learn very specific dribble moves. But again, that's not really what I do. There are plenty of channels on YouTube that focus on the details of how to do a move. My approach is coming from a mental standpoint of how to use those moves to be effective on the court. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful to you big guys out there who are looking for an introduction on how to develop your ball handling as a tall big guy. And if you did find this video helpful, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, because hopefully now that the weather is starting to cooperate, maybe going forward we can put together more videos about more basketball specific activities. So thank you guys again, and I will see you next week.